Welcome to the All for Your Life podcast, where you can write a new script for your life and become the hero of your story. I'm your host, David McRae. You are the author of your life. Let's get started.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Hello, story changers, and welcome back to the next episode of the Isolation Inspiration Interview series. Today on the series, we have Adam Strong. Adam is an ultra-high achiever, corporate productivity authority, serial entrepreneur, international speaker, and thought leader. He currently runs 4 different businesses and enjoys working with senior business leaders, decision makers, entrepreneurs, and medium-sized companies. Adam is also a former elite athlete that trained with Olympic and world champion Sir Farah for 3 years. He takes the same skill set that he learned as an athlete to teach his clients on how to create high-performance work cultures through increased productivity and profitability. He is the author of 2 books, Move It or Lose It and Fit Body, Fit Business, both written for business owners and teams that want their businesses to excel and to accelerate faster, quicker, and become more focused. Teams can achieve their high potential by maximizing health, performance, and productivity. Adam is hugely passionate about helping employees in the workplace become more engaged, improving physical and mental well-being, achieving work-life balance, and developing natural leaders. He enjoys the challenges of being in business, strategic innovation, ideologies, and bringing them to market. Tying that with helping people he believes is a great catalyst to creating results and success in life. Adam is a champion for supporting women, personal assistants, and entrepreneurs, and is the founder of the Association of Extraordinary PAs and became the Best Man for Supporting Women in Business 2016. He has been featured on the front cover of Global Man magazine, BBC Radio, The Huffington Post, and in People Management magazine, just to mention a few. He has also shared the stage with celebrities such as John Travolta, Vanilla Ice, Calvin Klein, 50 Cent, and Dr. Nido Qubein. Adam graduated at the University of Surrey in the UK and has his bachelor's degree in exercise science. In our interview today, you will learn Adam's 3 questions for making good decisions, that your why comes from thinking about your legacy, love is doing something without expectations of anything in return, how the coronavirus is making it more acceptable for people to ask for help. You will learn this and so much more in this interview with Adam Strong. Adam, welcome to the All for Your Life podcast.
Thanks very much. Really appreciate it.
Adam, I'd like to begin with sharing some of your story with the audience today. Can you tell us a little bit about your background story of who you are and the work that you do?
Sure. It's interesting. Where do I start? Okay, so I guess my background is I used to be a former elite athlete. I used to study and train with Olympic athletes, more importantly in the discipline of long distance running. So Samo Farah was my former training partner, and most people know who he is. Essentially what I do is I take those same skills and bring them into the business world. That's what I do. That's what I love. That's my passion. That's my drive. In fact, it's interesting because when I was growing up, actually, I didn't particularly come from a great childhood. I didn't particularly have a great childhood. How I got into entrepreneurship, believe it or not, is the first thing that I did at the age of 11, because there wasn't a lot of money that went around, right? And my mum was a single mum. And at Christmas time, me and my brother would share Christmas presents. That was just how it was. And it was unfortunate. Didn't get pocket money or anything like that. So one of the ideas I had was believe it or not, I started, there was a nature reserve not far from me, and there was a golf club, right? And what I did at weekends is I would go to the local nature reserve, and I would essentially go fishing, okay, and go rummaging through the bushes and collect golf balls. That's what I used to do at the age of 11, right? So I used to collect all of the Dunlops and the Nikes and, you know, the Slazenger. So the really expensive golf balls. And what I used to do is when I was walking around the golf course, you know, so the golfers would approach me and they'd be like, say, so, hey, so I want to have a look what you got in your bucket. I've just lost a really good golf ball, or I'm running low on golf balls. I went, okay, fine, no worries. And then they would offer me like money for these golf balls, and I knew roughly the value of each golf ball. You know, I knew that certain brands had certain prestige. It was all about condition, right? So if the condition was shabby, then it wasn't worth much. So they wanted it in perfect nick, and this is how I got into entrepreneurship. So essentially, what happened is, as I was collecting my funds during the weekend, I would essentially contribute towards the household, give some towards my mum, and keep some for myself. So that's how I got into entrepreneurship essentially at the age of 11, collecting golf balls. So it's pretty fun times. But yeah, so that's kind of back in the early days, I suppose, in a way. I was going to say, my big passion was obviously in sport. I love sport, and you know that was kind of me. And you know, my big dream actually was interesting, David. My big dream was working as a fitness trainer on the big cruise ships. And so I did that, right? I did the whole kind of tick the bucket list off thing, right? And you know, I did that. I was working at McDonald's, believe it or not, from the age of 16, and I worked up the corporate ladder at, you know, quite quickly. And after about 8 years, I had this someone had made this comment to me and said, "Oh, Adam, you're becoming part of the wallpaper." And so that was kind of my big kind of like epiphany, right? Do you know what I mean? Like when someone says something to you and like, oh crap, you know, I didn't realize that I've been doing what I've been doing. And you know, and so I'd kind of forgotten my dream type of thing, and I'd kind of forgotten why I was living type of thing. So then, you know, next day my operations manager came in and I essentially gave him my resignation letter, and he was so shocked it was ridiculous. Should have seen his face. It was comical. But then, so then I worked on cruise ships and things like that. And you know, opened a massage. Believe it or not, I was working in South London. I was doing full-time education, full-time work, as well as have a side business on top of that. So I was running a massage, sports massage clinic. So I was a busy 18-year-old guy. I was hustling hard, you know what I mean? So and that's where, and I think it was through the early days, I kind of collectively developed these skills of not just persistence, but also work hard, play hard type of thing, you know? So yeah, I was going to say, and then, you know, came back to the UK in my mid-20s, got into sort of PT and things like that. And then about sort of 6-7 years ago, made a new transition into what I'm doing now, which is helping business owners and entrepreneurs create a growth strategy, get more clarity and increase their productivity. So that's my big passion, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I've got to take the opportunity to ask, can you tell us about Mo Farah? What was your experience of being with him?
Yeah, I mean, Mo is a great guy. Comes from a very humble beginning. Obviously Somalian originally, moved to the UK at a very young age, moved in with his aunt. I knew his aunt and his cousins very well. So he lived with his aunt. and his cousins, and his cousin used to come down to the running track, and used to come and jeer him on and things like that. When he first came to the UK, obviously, his English wasn't particularly great. He didn't come from a very wealthy background at all. We had kind of a similar background in a way, so we shared the same, but we also had this kind of mindset. And it didn't take too long actually to change that mindset, because at the time when I first got into running, I was low in confidence. I was bullied. I lost my hair through alopecia. So it was kind of, I suppose it was a platform to kind of move into something that I felt that I could potentially capitalize on. And so me and Mo essentially used, I suppose, our own motivation to motivate each other and compete against each other and drive each other on. So we were kind of, and you've probably seen it in sort of big races like the London Marathon, for example, where they use like pacemakers throughout the race. And so we used each other as guinea pigs to essentially drive each other's enthusiasm and achievements forward. So, great guy. When I see most of the stories that I see in the newspaper and the media and about conspiracies and things like that, he isn't that type of guy. He's got his head screwed on. Really nice guy. But yeah, top guy.
Mm-hmm. What first attracted you to running?
I think what first attracted to me really was, it was actually my dad originally that got me into running. He started off years ago, and he said, I can see that, school life, child life, and your confidence has taken a bit of a down dive. And he was like, why didn't you get into running? And I'm like, running? What? I'm not good running. The thing with running is that when at that very young age, I was actually an asthma sufferer. So I could barely run 50 meters without having an asthma attack, So not only did I have health problems, it was confidence, mental health, and all of that was going on, right? So, but, within the space of a year, my asthma completely disappeared. Just through, because obviously you're utilizing oxygen and you're using your lung capacity and things like that, right? And yeah, it was interesting just to see that. And there was just like little switches, throughout the as my career started to develop, actually. And adapted. I was prepared to do a lot of things that a lot of most kids at my age, they weren't prepared to do. I love video games, by the way, and so do many other teenage boys and things like that, right? I was a big, I loved it, but I was extremely focused. I really wanted to achieve stuff. So yeah, I mean, yeah.
I'll come back to the running a little bit later, because I feel there's more we can pick out and relate to what you're doing now. But there was another aspect of your story that I wanted to hone in on, and it's something that I've become really interested in recent times, is decision making, and in particular, moving from something we know to something we don't know. And this is what I saw happen when you handed in your resignation at McDonald's, and it was a very quick decision. And most people, I think, would have wanted to kind of think through that, ask some people, kind of sort of look at the pros and cons of the situation, whereas you just went in and did it. So I wanted to explore a little bit of what led to that decision.
Absolutely. With regards to the resignation,
Yeah.
I think it was in less than 24 hours I made the decision, but I think there's a number of reasons that I came into conclusion, and I'll talk about decision making in a second. I had a passion, and so I went to university. I went to college, went to university. I worked hard, um, you know, doing my side business as well as working full time, right? I had to pay for everything out my own pocket. But the thing is that when we were in a job, or when we're in a transition, okay, and this doesn't apply to everybody, but it applies to a lot of people, is that we go into this kind of autopilot mode where we go to work, we sleep, we eat, and it's like Groundhog Day, right? Like with Bill Murray, and then we forget about the things that are most important to us, right? Rather than just paying bills, or just doing something for the sake of doing it. It's completely pointless. Life is about having fun. Life is about following your dreams and ambitions. And I think when it came to decision making in particular, there's a technique that I particularly use, and I use this with a lot of my clients. Okay, and first of all, is when I'm making a decision, and I tell you how the secret sauce about making fast decisions. First question I ask myself is, what's the best case scenario? Based on the circumstances, what's the best circumstances, right? Then the second question I ask myself is, what's the worst case scenario? So back at McDonald's, what's the worst case scenario? I don't get my job. I don't get this. I'm jobless or whatever it is. So, the risk was pretty high. But I had also, prior to that, I'd already kind of been making a lot of relationships with people that had get me to where I wanted to do anyway. And so my final question that I asked myself was, what is the most likely outcome based on what I've got in front of me, right? So if we look at, like, for example, the midst of the coronavirus, right? And there's a lot of fearful and paralyzed and scared business owners right now, okay? They're going to be faced with a whole array of new decisions right now, yeah? And most of them they're like paralyzed, right? They can't make any decisions, or they're waiting for whatever it is. And I say to people is, never wait and rely on other people. Take matters into your own hand. Take personal responsibility, and assume that you should never rely on anybody else, because normally you have that turns into an expectation. And if you have expectations, that turns into disappointment if it doesn't work out. So, that's how I kind of came to sort of speeding up my decision-making process as such.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that what you do now is bringing in some of the lessons of your running experience and applying them into the business world. Would you like to share some of what these lessons are?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I know that there are lots of different athletes out there, whether it be in football, whether it be rowing, or whatever it is. And we all share different stories and epiphanies based around that, right? So there are a few skill sets that I think are needed, especially if you're like a business owner or an entrepreneur. And I always talk about those people because, that's me as well. And some of the skills that I believe that you really need in business, and we always kind of get that all the time, is number one is to get mentally tough, right? Because I'm telling you now, even if you are an employee, right, and you want to get to the next stage in your career, or you're running a business, the fundamentals don't change at the end of the day. But you have to learn how to get mentally tough, because I know that life isn't easy, right? Life's not easy. Running a business isn't easy. Being an entrepreneur is not easy for me anyway, and it isn't for most people. But, and if straight up, no way they're lying. So mental toughness is probably one of the key fundamentals, I think, getting mentally tough. Because without one of the things which I learned really early on actually is mindset. You know, we talk about mindset all the time, right? But there is a process before you get that growth mindset, right? And it's called conditioning. You have to condition yourself before you achieve that growth mindset. So without that growth mindset, okay, it doesn't matter what strategy I give you or what tips and advice I give you to do whatever it is that you want to do, okay, it's not going to work because your mindset's not conditioned, you know. So I suppose that's kind of like my second key ingredient, I guess. The third one, which I think is super important, is focus, right? So in times of crisis, right, like now, for example, in times of crisis and panic and fear and things like that, we become, and I'll share you a quick story, right, David? So about 18 months ago, or maybe a little bit less, maybe 15 months ago, right, I got quite sick. I got quite ill, all right? And under huge amounts of pressure, like massive amounts. And I just couldn't digest all of the pressures, whether it was a mixture of business, financial, work, personal, you name it. The pressure was just too much for me, right? So I started getting sick, but mentally sick more than anything else. I started losing my memory. I started, I wasn't looking after my physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, okay? And so one of the things that started to happen is I started to get tunnel vision, yeah? My peripheral awareness, okay, started to break down. So I didn't have any peripheral awareness because all I was is this tunnel vision, you know? And that's what happens in times of crisis and fear of pain. So you've got to get focused, right? Get focused. You know, there's a lot of distractions out there. One of the big distractions right now is the media. The media is causing fear and panic, right? And yeah, they can be informative, but it can be extremely distracting right now. The media is probably one of the big fear factors for most people. And if you keep listening to the same stuff over and over again, you begin to believe in it. And one of the things that my coach taught me early on in the early days is like, Adam, if you set goals, and you write those goals, and you write those visions, and you put them in different places around where you are kind of hanging out most, right? And you see them, and you visualize them, and you make it happen, right? It's the same with negativity. The more you see something, right, the more you believe in it. So focus is probably, like, for me, the fourth biggest skill. And the last one is all about creating that strategic plan, right? So from my perspective, because in these challenging times, so we all need to have a plan. Because if we have a plan, right, we feel a lot more grounded. Do you know what I mean? We feel more confident, and then we have some direction in where we're going. So I think from my perspective, you know, I think those were the 5 key skills that I learned from being an athlete and making that transition into business owner, entrepreneur, and things like that. And those ones are probably, I would say, have done me the best service compared to anything than most things.
Mm-hmm. I liked in particular when you were talking about growth mindset, because I feel growth mindset has become this sort of like sexy soundbite thing now, where in schools and in companies and organizations, it's we need to get a growth mindset and have the people who work for us having a growth mindset. And I look at these places and I say, okay, so growth mindset is important. What are you doing in a daily manner? What are you doing with a strategic plan and intervention to create growth mindset? And it's crickets, it's tumbleweed. That, yeah, there's this concept of growth mindset that's become sort of very kind of sexy and soundbitey, but what are the actual steps to developing a growth mindset? And that seems to be largely neglected. I'm glad that you started to go into that a little bit. Do you have any more insight and suggestions as to how we go from theory into practice when it comes to growth mindset?
I think one of the things, and again, I'll take this back into my athletic days, right? So I think one of the things when I first got into athletics, as an example, is about creating a why. What is the big why for you, right? And Simon Sinek, who is a great guy,
Yeah.
his YouTube video has been watched by millions of people around the world. Really kind of says it all for most people like myself, and really kind of puts it, really kind of explains it in a really easy way. So number one is your why. And yeah, we all do things which and I talk about this with a lot of my clients, and I hear the same thing. Oh, yeah, it's about my family and that kind of stuff. But actually, let's think about this, okay? I had this question probably come to me about 3 months ago, actually, and I really had to think about it because for me, yeah, okay, we all do things for our family and our kids if we've got kids or whatever. Everyone says that, right? But then the other thing one thing that I teach my clients is I say to people, I'm like, what is the legacy that you want to create, and what is the impact that you want to leave the world when you pass on maybe 100 years down the line? And then it's a whole new context. Do you know what I mean? So that's the first thing. And the second thing is you have to kind of understand is understand what's important to you. What's important to you in life? What is your life's purpose? Right? Because I'm telling you now, it's not just to earn a few grand and to pay your bills. It's not about that. 100% it's not. So you've got to understand your life purpose. If you don't, get some help. That's all I'm going to say is get help. Really, really super important. And also the third thing that I would say is challenge the status quo. Always question why you're doing what you're doing. So why is it that you're getting out of bed? Why is it that you are picking up the phone? Why is it that you are, for me, it's about kind of understanding and challenging myself and understanding my habits and making sure that I'm not doing the same thing that everyone else is doing and kind of making the same mistakes over and over and over again because I see it all the time, and I'm like, do you not see it? And they're like, no, because they're so, especially in this times, David, actually, because most of us are working from home, right? Yeah. We're stuck in our houses or apartments or whatever it is, right? Okay, so we're stuck at home. And so we're having to adapt to new challenges in our working lives, right? And the thing is, this is also a great opportunity, right, to reinvent and reset yourself. That's what it is about, because we live in a busy, busy, busy world. Okay, whether it's you're going to the office and doing the commute or being part of the rat race, or if you are running your business and you're taking on too many responsibilities. At the end of the day, this is an opportunity more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. What's struck me about your path and your purpose so far in life is that you have always gone for challenging endeavors. You've been in athletics and you've been in entrepreneurship, which are like two of the most challenging and disciplined areas that you can have in life.
Yeah.
How have you kept yourself motivated during the challenges that you faced on this path?
Okay, number of things. Number one is going back to what we just talked about, which is understanding, what is it that I want to create? What is my impact? I always go back to that. So if I begin to remind myself of what's important and the impact that I want to create, okay, then that's the first thing. Secondly, self-discipline. It's one of the most hardest habits that anyone can create. I learned it very, very early on. I remember on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings and the winter evenings in particular, I'd be out in temperatures like -4, -5, and there'll be hardly any floodlights. It would be boggy, it would be cold, it'd be in shorts and t-shirt. We'd have our gloves and whatever it is, and we would be burning our lungs, right? Whereas all the other people and children and teenagers, all the people of my age, were just in their warm, cozy houses playing Mario Kart or video games. I love Mario Kart, by the way. I'm a big Mario Kart fan. But the thing is, I knew that, you've got to be prepared to, number one, you've got to be prepared to get uncomfortable. That's the first thing. You've got to get prepared to get out of your comfort zone. And you've got to be prepared to do whatever it takes, regardless, because you can come up with as many excuses as you want. And most of those excuses are the same excuses you keep telling yourself, and you keep self-sabotaging yourself, see it all the time. So, yeah. So I think for me, those are the two important things for me: self-discipline and understanding kind of the big why factor for me.
Mm-hmm. We've talked so far about your local experience and your particular journey. I'd like to start zooming out to the global experience, and we've mentioned the big C words a couple of times. I wanted to discuss the current situation and the current challenge and the current adversity, and that's the whole point of why I'm doing this particular series of interviews, is to pick apart what we can learn from people's prior experiences and prior challenges that we can take into this particular one. So first thing off the bat is, how are you coping? How are you getting on with the current situation?
For me personally, I'm getting on okay, actually. I think it's interesting because I've got kids, of course, as most people have, which, I've got a 2-year-old who's hanging around my ankles every day, and trying to balance a family and run a business is challenging, don't get me wrong. But I think for me is one of the big strengths that you can do, especially when it comes to running a business or anything, is that if you are in need of help, is to lean in and ask. Because if you don't ask, the answer will always be no. Yeah. Right? So that's the first thing. It's a sign of strength rather than weakness. So asking for help. For me, I mean, it's interesting because I like to be really productive. It's interesting because I've been given lots of great opportunities that have come about. For example, this week I wrote a really powerful article in Work Life magazine, which is a fantastic, and there was a lot of great experts in there. So that was a great opportunity. Obviously, we're here together as well. I've had a few other people that have reached out and say, "Hey, could you mind contributing here? Do you mind?" And I'm out. I love getting. I love contributing and serving the wider cause. That's kind of my big why is it's not about me. It's about serving the greater cause at the end of the day. That's what I love about what I do. So yeah, I mean, I'm working on some really, really exciting projects, 2 in particular right now, that's keeping me busy. One's really big, but that is like, it's kind of something that's that I'm putting together right now, which is like a small team right now, because I can't do it on my own. And I realize that, especially if you run a business and you're a solopreneur and whatever it is, we're not Mr. Invincible, right? Or Mrs. Invincible. We have to start to delegate and automate as best as we can. My big thing right now, especially this year, is all around collaboration, right? Collaboration is the new word in 2020. And I think what we're going to find is we're going to find a lot more people are more open to collaboration than not, rather than just being busy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm doing pretty good, thank you.
You've kind of touched upon a couple already. Do you have any suggestions for strategies and practices that people can use to get through this time, to stay healthy, to stay sane, to stay as productive as they can?
Strategies. Well, number one, follow the advice. Don't do what some people are doing, which is be ignorant, and be selfish, and I see it all the time, by the way, because I'm just like, why is it that people are trying to live a normal life when we're not living in a normal world? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So tips and strategies. Well, clearly, number one is self-care. You've got to not just condition your mindset. You've got to learn to still stay fit and healthy, whether it be go out once a day and go on a bike ride, or go for a run, or here in Sweden they have a lot of outdoor gyms, so I love the old kind of outdoor gyms and things like that, which is fantastic. So it's just a great way of staying fit and healthy. So first of all, you should always take care of your health, because if you haven't got your health, you've got nothing. Secondly, if you do feel fearful, anxious, scared, and all of that kind of stuff, right? I always ask the question is what's the reason why? And if it's because of this whole C virus and whatever it is, I always say to my clients, number one is, can you control what's happening in the world? The answer is no, you can't. So if you can't control it, okay, what can you do about it? Well, the best thing that you can do about it is to do what you do best, which is work hard, okay, get focused, and eliminate the distractions and noise out there. So you have to make yourself aware about what is actually affecting your productivity, but the way that you are as a person, whether it be disrupting your habits, whether it be disrupting just the way you are as a person, right? So you have to, what I say is, make a list of all the things, all the distractions. So if it's the media, okay, is it the TV? Is it this? So start making those distractions, and then you got to think to yourself, okay, how can I then replace those, right? So if you are the typical type of person which is feeling sorry for himself and watching Netflix right now, okay, stop that, okay, because it's not helping. Just stop that right now. So it just doesn't make any sense. So and thirdly, actually, I think is all about having, and I know it sounds easier said than done, but have a positive attitude, or develop a positive attitude, because you can't control what's happening in the world. It's affecting economies and businesses around the world. And I said this in my article actually this week, which was, this virus will kill more businesses and economies than it will people.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Mm-hmm.
So which is a shame, but you don't have to be that number. You don't have to be that minority. There are lots of great experts out there. And one of the things that I learned from a very young age was to get a coach, right? Find someone that can help you, or a mentor, whatever it might be. And the mentor could be like your mom or dad or whatever it is, right? But someone that can help you to get you through this time of crisis more than anything else, because this is just a great opportunity also to sharpen your skills, right? It's to skill up, right? Is that one of the best opportunities. You will never get a better opportunity than this. I'm telling you now, you just won't. So if you're more skilled and you're more educated and you're more you're going to develop, as we said, growth mindset, but positive attitude, because you can still have a growth mindset, okay, but which takes time to develop, but you have to create that positive attitude regardless. But yeah, so I hope that kind of answers a few questions.
Yeah. I liked how you highlighted the virus is going to kill more businesses than people, and I think there's a lot of under discussed topics at the moment, and I think we have, certainly you've been talking about how there's a media focus and it's like panic, death, but I think there's some underlying topics that we aren't talking about. I think businesses we are talking about it, but maybe not as much as maybe we will come to realize in, say, 6 to 12 months' time. The other two topics that I don't think we're talking enough about are mental health and loneliness. And I think they are going to be massive, massive problems because of the current situation. And I haven't really heard anyone talking about either of those issues very much.
It's interesting because I think we sing off the same hymn note because starting next week, actually, I'm doing this like networking mastery. And one of the three things that we decided on was, number one is our clients are lonely right now. They need some help, right? They need someone to lean into, right? But secondly, because of the high anxiety that's out there, and I think that in particular, Europeans and British people in particular are very, they're still very taboo around the whole mental health aspect, right? And so we've got to be more open. We've got to learn to be more open to have that conversation. Find out what works, what doesn't work for other people. We're all different human beings at the end of the day, and we're going to find certain things work, some things that don't work, for example. So I think that's really super important. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing that, the networking mastery next week, actually, to it's not just based around that, but it's also based around just helping people to build relationships in the online space as well. Relational capital. I always talk about the importance of relational capital. And being able to have open conversations with people that are like-minded, that are sitting in the same boat as you, and to essentially problem solve. Because we're all faced with these huge hurdles right now, these huge challenges. Okay, but if we all work together as a collective and as a unity, then we can get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a really important. I like this. Was it social capital or relationship capital? What was your terminology again?
Relational capital.
Relational capital. That's actually part of the reason why I've done this interview series. I've done it, number one, in terms of my service as a messenger and to my audience, but actually what I've also done it partially for is my social and mental health, because I now have about 20 conversations booked in over the next couple of weeks. And that makes sure that I'm still talking to people, I'm still connecting, I'm still engaging, because I know if I don't do that, then I'm not going to be able to serve and work as effectively in my business. I'm also not going to be as happy and healthy with myself as well. So yeah, there's certainly a sort of self-focused aspect to why I'm having these conversations as well.
Cool. Love it. Fantastic. Good job.
I've also liked, you've used the word opportunity a couple of times whilst you've been talking about this. And this was also one of the questions that I wanted to ask was, what opportunities do you think there are in this situation, not just in terms of what we can maybe work on and develop afterwards, but is there anything during this time, and you have mentioned a couple of things, is there anything else you haven't mentioned that you think is a good opportunity?
In the current situation, opportunity? Is that what you said? Sorry?
Yes. Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah. Opportunities. I think that there are actually a lot of great opportunities out there. And I think it all depends on, number one, what's important to us. We go back to that first of all. Okay. Number two, I know that a lot of people are holding on to their cash right now because of the uncertainty, which is fair enough. It's very good. I understand that. But, there are some booming industries right now. And, healthcare being one of them, retail being another. Well, especially if you're a supermarket, right? That's fantastic. But actually, even in a downturn market, because we are in a downturn market now because of the way everything is, for example, real estate, you're gonna find that there's some wonderful opportunities in the real estate markets. So investments are going to be great. There's just going to be a lot of things that's going on. And even though people are holding onto their cash, but people are actually they're still willing to spend. If you believe that someone can help you, if you believe that it can help you in whichever way, right? Then rather than kind of, and I know that the thought process is, well, I could do this, but I want to hold on to my cash. But if it's actually going to genuinely help you, okay, there's no better time than to do it now, because then you're just going to give yourself another excuse of, okay, well, I've got no time now, right? So and I'm dealing with business owners and entrepreneurs all the time about how many different excuses you can come up with, right? And you listen, at the end of the day, and this was interesting, probably about 7 years ago, I remember when I was starting to make a transition into what I do right now, yeah, and from sort of like what I did in fitness and sports performance, and what I found is that I started to go, because I was in a very frustrated state of mind. Yeah, I was very frustrated. I had zero clarity. All I knew that the people that I was working with, even though I loved them to bits, okay, I was working one-on-one. I knew that the business model wasn't sustainable, but I also knew that I could help people on a much larger scale or impact. So one of the things I started to do is I started to attend a lot of these personal development events, right? Whether it be mainly live events, and some of the events were very good, right? But most of them didn't have the relevance, and a lot of them I felt were just kind of big sales pitches, right?
Yeah.
Which is hugely frustrating, and so I ended up turning into what they call a sponge, where you absorb all this information, right? And you go into what they call information overload, right? And you don't know how to digest all of this information and how to essentially dissect it into a language that is relevant to you. Yeah. And I found it hugely, and so many people had said, "Oh, Adam, you need to get a coach. Adam, you need this. Adam, and I just kept on coming up with so many excuses. And one of the big excuse was all around money, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that my business was doing okay, but I didn't want to spend it, and I didn't have enough to invest in what I needed to get done. And so after about 18 months, I was just really frustrated. I'd had enough. I was like, enough is enough. I'm done. So I had to find a way to raise the investment to help me to get me from where I was there to where I am now. And if I didn't make that investment, I'd still be probably back then after many years of frustration and stuff like that. And and it's not a nice place to be in. So yeah. But I raised the income. I'd found a way, because I knew that if I kept on going with what I was doing, I wasn't moving forward. And I say this to all my clients. I say, if you're not moving forwards, you're either growing or you're dying. That's it. You're either going forwards or backwards. That's it, right? There's no in between the middle, right? No one likes to plateau, but that's how it works. So yeah.
It's funny what you've been talking about in terms of like finding an excuse. It's remind me of this little kind of analogy parable thing that I've heard, that there's these three factors that decide what we do in life: energy, time, and money. When you're young, you've got energy and time, but no money. When you're middle-aged, you've got time and money, but no energy. And then when you're old, you've got energy and money, but no time. So you can always find the limiting factors. You've got to at one point say, I'm doing this regardless of what real or perceived limitations that I might have at this point in time.
Absolutely.
And I think what this current situation has done is it's actually simplified things in a lot of ways. I've certainly found, for me, it's simplified in terms of, well, here's so many things that I now just can't do because it's not feasible or it's prohibited. So actually, there's only so many activities that I can actually do. So I'm going to double down on those activities. I'm going to double down on these Zoom interviews that I'm doing. I'm going to double down on writing. I'm going to double down on filming, because I can't go out there and meet people. I can't go out there and run events. So again, I think you mentioned it earlier, actually, focus on what you can do and what you can control in the situation. I think that's a really important aspect as well.
Absolutely. Cool.
So I'd like to start finishing on, I say a more positive note. I don't think that was actually doom and gloom at all. I think we were having a positive conversation about the current situation. But moving on to some positive global ideas and concepts. And the first of these, Adam, what are you grateful for?
What am I grateful for? Well, I'm grateful for many things. I'm grateful for family. I'm grateful for the wonderful job that the NHS is doing in the UK, because, you know, being British, I think that's fantastic. I'm grateful for nature and the fact that actually, you know, I'm in pretty good, healthy shape and stuff like that. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that the earth hasn't ended. You know, this is not a zombie apocalypse at the end of the day. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. Yeah. So, you know, there's a lot of great things that, and you know, there's lots of people that I'm thankful in life, and you know, and I kind of, I'm a very you know, I'm thankful for my children and that they're healthy and they're looked after and stuff like that. So, you know, there's lots of things that I have in terms of from gratitude, definitely.
Moving from gratitude into love, and I think this question really applies in the way that we're finding things at the moment. How can we bring more love into the world?
Love. Okay. Well, that's interesting, because I think that there's also, when we think about love, there's also a false perception of what love is, because some people see love as a kind of the physical, you know, sexual type of thing, but then love actually, when love is actually doing something without expecting something in return, you know, so that's kind of love. For example, like, you know, me doing this with you, I don't mind doing it. I do it out of love, right? I do it out of serving for people, you know. So I think, what can we do to kind of encourage more love in the world? Well, I think that we have to, yes, we have to put ourselves first. Okay, so our number one is us. Okay, but number two is to think about others as well. You know, always have others at the back of your mind. You know, otherwise you just turn into like a lonely, grumpy person, right? And that always ends up complaining about things in life, which is just not going to get you anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And you know, and show kindness. You know, be kind to people. You know, there's no need to be aggressive and things like that. You know, and sometimes when we're angry, for whatever reason it might be, is to just take kind of a breather and a back step, and rather than kind of saying something out of context, or something that you might not shouldn't have said, it's just to take a breather and sort of digest the information and then say something. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I think for me it's about showing kindness and you know, and you know, and thinking about others and putting others first rather than just about ourselves.
You said earlier that you think the theme for this year, 2020, will be collaboration. Now, this is funny because at the start of the year, I set a theme and I set a word for 2020, which was vision. Surprise, surprise, huge imagination there. The irony, of course, is that none of us could have envisioned what has happened. And basically everything that I set out at the start of the year, 75% of it has just gone already. And I'm kind of restocking, reprioritizing, replanning for the year. You, Adam, for the rest of the year,
Yeah.
what's your 2020 vision? What are you hoping to do, create, achieve?
Well, so I've obviously, what's really important, and I'll make this applies to everybody, by the way, is that because no one ever predicted what was going to happen in a time of crisis, right? But first of all, you've got to learn to be adaptable, right? So for me, my original vision, which I had in what I wanted to achieve in terms of my goals and things like that, right? it's going to change dramatically the way I execute things, right? So I think for me, I mean, my big why is all around helping people. I love helping people. I really enjoy helping people. It's what I do and what I love. So I think for me, my vision from my perspective is that I think for me, my vision is to help 10 six-figure business owners to get to 7. That was kind of my goal as such. That was my kind of big, and then I think it was like 25-figure business owners to get to 6-figure business. And that was kind of my big vision. That was kind of me and kind of my bubble and things like that. And so, my other vision is obviously to continue to improve my health, to make sure that, to live a happy and fulfilling life as such and things like that. But also to continue to learn all the time, sharpen. I'm always learning. I'll never be perfect. I don't believe in perfectionism. And just to do it, right? You just got to just execute, fast action, quick. That's kind of, I suppose that's for me. That's kind of my big vision at the moment.
Mm-hmm. The next question is something that is probably very much on your mind, actually, that you have been mentioning your children and your young 2-year-olds during this time. And I think the children of right now are really going to inherit this century, the 21st century, and all these things that are coming up and are going to continue to come up.
Yeah.
I want you to imagine that you have a young child in front of you now. It may very well be your own child of about 5 years old, and you're going to say something to them that's going to help prepare them for the life that they're going to live and help prepare them to live the life that they want to live during this time.
Yeah.
What would you be saying to that child?
I would say to them, I would always say is, how am I going to say this in terms of the words? Follow your dreams and passions in life. Don't ever live a life where you're listening to what other people want you to do. Do something that you want to do. Because I speak to people and I see so many people that are living a life or, trying to achieve goals that they never set, that they're not passionate about, whatever it is. No, screw that. No, that's not. No, I don't believe in any of that. And the other thing is also around, trying your best. Always try your best. Regardless if it's important to you, then try your best. And the third and final thing for me is about respect. Showing respect for others and being kind to them. And things like that. So I suppose it's kind of even my values as a person. Trying your best and doing your best and stuff like that. So, I think those are probably my 3 most important ones.
Mm-hmm. Moving from the beginning of life to end of life, and again, this is something that you brought up when you were thinking about what you want your legacy to be, and from that comes a lot of your why and a lot of your purpose. When you get to the end of your life, Adam, and you look back on the time you've been given here on Earth, what legacy do you want to have left?
Good question. And it's changing all the time, believe it or not. I think for me is that my big goal in life is about feeling, what's the word I'm looking for? I want to feel that I've kind of not just helped the world. That's the wrong word, but I kind of want to sort of say to people is I want to feel that I've maxed out what I can and in terms of what I live for right now. And there's a particular word that I've lost actually that will probably come to me in a second. But it's I think for me my legacy, because it always changes all the time, is to be remembered for the right reasons. Right. I don't want to be forgotten and I don't want to be forgotten and kind of seen as kind of a bit of a nobody. I want to be seen as someone that, do you know what? I remember Adam. He was, he helped me do this. And it's a bit like when you think about role models such as, Gandhi or Mother Teresa or whatever. It's, they're known for those roles and they're known for those things. Do you know what I mean? And so for me, I guess I have the Kane sign of philosophy, which is all around being remembered for the right reasons, and doing what I'm doing and what I do love best. So, yeah, I mean, it kind of probably doesn't answer your question as such, because it is always changing and we're always learning. So yeah, it's all about being able to be remembered for the right reasons. Is, I think, for me.
For the audience who's been listening today, Adam, and they've resonated with your story, your journey, some of the things that you've been explaining and talking about, and they want to find out a little bit more about who you are, what you do, where would you be directing them to go?
I mean, LinkedIn is really popular for me. Happy to connect with people on LinkedIn, and my website, adamstrong.net, or also on Amazon, because I have a number of books as well. You can just type my name in, Adam Strong, and you'll be able to see some of the things that I've written about and what I'm about. So I think those are probably my three main resources.
Mm-hmm. Well, Adam, I'd just like to say thank you for joining us today on the Author Your Life podcast. I've particularly resonated with this underlying trait, and I don't think you've actually used the words, but what I've really noticed throughout your account is resourcefulness. And I think it was really typified by that story of the golf balls and the nature reserve, thinking, what can I do in the current situation to make things better? And I think that's been an underlying trait that you've demonstrated. It's been an underlying theme of what you've been talking about. So I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that and mark what I've noticed today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
To continue to help you through this isolation period, I've decided to open up my Author Your Life Academy for free for the next 3 months. Author Your Life is my online educational community where you can access training sessions, workshops, and question and answers, and connect with other people around the world who are going through this situation and trying to make the best of things. The Academy normally costs $27 a month to subscribe, but for the next 3 months, I'm going to open that up for free. Essentially, you're getting a 3-month free trial of the platform. To access the Author Your Life Academy, go to authoryourlife.org/academy, and when prompted, enter the code CORONA in block capitals. Yes, what else would the code be? CORONA in block capitals, and that will take your $27 subscription down to zero for the next 3 months. The Academy is where I'm going to be focusing a lot of my content during this difficult time. It's where I'm trying to bring people together to help and support each other as we go through this period of isolation, of fear, of uncertainty. I hope the Academy is something that will be able to help you too during this situation. So if you want to come in and join us, as I said, go to authoryourlife.org/academy, and when you sign up, enter the code CORONA, and that will give you 3 months for free. It's my gift to you to try and help and support during this time as best I can. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it hugely if you could head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the podcast. With your review, please be as honest and detailed as you can be. Because with honest and detailed feedback, that helps me to adapt and grow this podcast to most serve you, the listener. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That way you aren't going to miss any of the future episodes that we've got lined up for you. Until next time, remember that you are the author of your life. You hold the pen, and you can write whatever script you want for yourself. So go out today and write yourself a beautiful story.